it's funny because trials tend to reduce me to my point of strength. Trials reveal whatever level of faith I actually live by, not think by. There's never been a time in my life of ministry, which has been a long time. I haven't even counted, but it's been around. There's never been a time where I couldn't say the battle, the spiritual warfare is in the mind. I could have said it and it would have been as true 40 years ago, 50 years ago as it is today. But I will say this, I've never seen as intense a battle over the mind as I see right now. And the spirit of offense is on wholesale. You get 2 demons for the price of 1 right now, so it's so heightened that you can be offended at somebody else's offense, offended at somebody else's offendedness over an offense. And I don't think we have a bent in that way, but I think it's the climate that if we don't recognize it, we won't know the antidote. Some things you don't fight by acknowledging them, you fight by living in the opposite spirit. Some things. I just wanted to give you guys another chance. That's really what I'm doing. Some things you don't fight by acknowledging them. Just saying, well, today's a day where spirit of offense is really working hard on our country or something. That's easy to spot and stay and still be under its influence.
Yeah, that's good.
Acknowledging it doesn't set me free. Living in the opposite spirit helps me because it gives my soul, it creates in me, it's impossible for that spirit to find any place to land or any place to rest. Because moving in the opposite spirit is what really positions us to thrive at times like this. And so we've got some challenges before us, but we also have this incredible invitation from the Lord to think like he thinks. He's already told us that we've inherited the mind of Christ. And by the way, you probably know this, but it doesn't say I as an individual have inherited the mind of Christ. It says we have inherited the mind of Christ. We have the mind of Christ. What I've noticed is there's a big difference between what's in my account and what's in my possession. I just read a story here. I think I can remember it well enough. Charles Spurgeon used this story often. He would visit this very elderly, very, very poor woman. In fact, she was so poor the church had to kind of keep her alive or take care of her, feed her and stuff. And when she finally passed away, Charles Spurgeon, who was called the Prince of Preachers in London, great, amazing man of God, he went to her house to help clean out the home. And he had never noticed this before, but he looked up on the wall and there was a certificate on the wall, and he had never recognized it before because in all of his visits with her, they had just talked and fellowship together. But he became curious about this because they were cleaning the house out with her possessions. And they looked, and here was a last will and testament. And she was poor and she was unschooled and never learned how to read. And she thought the certificate looked so pretty that she put it in a frame on her wall, not realizing she had just inherited an extraordinary amount of wealth. And it sat there on her wall while she died in poverty because it was never cashed in. She never had access to what was actually left to her. And let's be really honest, most of us as believers have our certificates on the wall. And we don't always know how to access what the Lord has promised us. And that's what active Christianity is like. It's learning to access what he's made available for us. He's not coming back again to do it all over, to make sure we get it the second time through. Everything that we will need throughout all of eternity has already been purchased at Calvary, at the cross. There is no second event where he finishes the work. Everything was purchased at that point. And so learning what he purchased for, learning what he planned for us, learn what he has set the stage for us to experience and live in, that's the great adventure of the Christian life. And it's never, ever boring. We have advances, we have setbacks. That's life. I learn quickly and then I learn slowly. And it's funny because trials tend to reduce me to my point of strength. Trials reveal whatever level of faith I actually live by, not think by. Sometimes we have self-perception of our own faith that's a lot higher than the actual level of faith, and difficulties bring me down to my real level of faith. It's not a time for discouragement. It's a time to get hungry for God. It's time to recognize I really need the Lord. I really need him to touch me. We have this interesting story with Peter and Jesus in this 16th chapter of Matthew. And he says in verse 15, actually, let's go back to 13 to give us the context. Jesus came into the region of Caesarea Philippi. He asked his disciples, saying, "Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" So they answered, "Some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets." And he said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered and said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus answered and said to him, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. The gates of hell shall not prevail against it." I personally don't think he was saying he's going to build the church on Peter. It was on the rock of the revelation of Jesus being the Christ, the Son of God. Verse 19, "And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Forgive me while I rant and rave here for just a moment, but I'm a little frustrated with that translation, with my translation. This says, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. You don't bind something in time and then have it bound in eternity. The whole mandate of the Lord for us in discipleship is found in the prayer we were commissioned to pray on earth as it is in heaven. So heaven then is the model. The original New American Standard says, whatever you bind on earth shall have been bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven. So in other words, I actually need understanding of heavenly realms to be able to pray effectively to know what's available for here. We know what to bind here because we know what evil looks like. We know if there's death, loss, destruction, that's the fingerprints of the enemy. We know he's been involved in that situation. We bind it. What does it mean to bind? If you go and buy a car and you have 3 years of payments and you decide after 12 months you don't want to make the payments anymore, the bank will come and either take your car or they will say, "We have a binding contract. We're going to hold you to the contract that says you owe us X amount of money every month." What is it to bind the devil? It's to hold him to the contract that says we have been ordained by God to bind powers, walk on scorpions, etc., all the powers of hell, because that is our commission. And it's blood bought. It's been paid with the blood of Jesus, enabling us to hold the enemy to the contract that God, his master, has created. So we bind here what's bound there. That one's fairly easy because we know what evil looks like. But unless we have heavenly experiences, heavenly encounters, we don't know what to loose here that's loose there. There are realities there that have no earthly parallel. Let me take just a minute with this just to mess with you a little bit. Jesus said in John 3, he says, "If I talk to you about earthly things and you don't get it, how are you going to get it when I talk to you about heavenly things?" What's the context? If I talk to you about earthly things, he had just talked to them about being born again, so there's birth, and he just talked to them about the nature of the Spirit of God and the nature of the believer to be like wind. So he refers to birth and wind. And in that context, he says, if I talk to you about heavenly or earthly things, And you don't see the parallel. You don't see that there are earthly principles and there are heavenly realities that the earthly principles mirror or reveal. Did I say that right? Does that make sense? In other words, sowing and reaping. We know that that's true with corn, but it's also true with mercy. If you show mercy, you receive mercy. Are you with me? There's parallels between the natural realm and the spiritual realm. So Jesus comes to them, he says, if I talk to you about earthly things and you're not making the connection, then how are you going to get it if I talk to you about heavenly things? In other words, how are you going to get it when I talk to you about realities in my world that have no earthly parallel? Why does he want them to get it? Because that's what they're supposed to release. Revelation 4:1, come up here. There's an open heaven, come. Why? It's not so we can run around and wow people with things we've seen. It's because we are commissioned. We are co-laborers with the Lord. With authority to release here what is already released there. Heaven doesn't just have philosophic answers for every earthly dilemma. It has realities that solve every earthly dilemma. If there's anything that all of us leave with out of events like this that Global and the rest put on is that we leave thankful, we leave in a measure satisfied, but we also leave with a level of hunger we've not had before. And it's not the hunger that is easily satisfied. It's not satisfied by a good meeting. It's satisfied only by a shift in lifestyle. It's satisfied only by a shift in the reality that I live in. It's an invitation to apprehend something, take hold of something that is much more substantial than laying on the ground for 3 hours, and I like that. I like that. I promote that. If I want, I see meetings like we have, and I go, I want what she has. That's my approach. The wilder, the better. But I know, like you do, that we're actually here. That may be a tool, but we're here for a shift in lifestyle. A shift in what we are aware of. Why? Because we're co-laborers, and we actually have the responsibility to release something here. All right, I just ranted and raved for a few minutes. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, verse 19. Whatever you bind on earth will have been bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven. He commanded his disciples that they should tell no one that Jesus was the Christ. Isn't that amazing? Because those same people were about to crucify him. I don't think he wanted to increase their responsibility for what they were about to do. From that time, Jesus began to show the disciples that he must go to Jerusalem, suffer many things from the elders and chief priests, scribes, and be killed, be raised on the third day. Peter took him aside, began to rebuke him, saying, far be it from you, Lord, for this shall not happen to you. In John 14, 15, and 16, 4 times in those 3 chapters, Jesus told his disciples they could have anything they wanted. Here's a prophetic word from Peter. This shall not happen to you. God always reserves the right to veto any prayer I pray that undermines my purpose. If it violates my design and my assignment, it's an automatic no. Because everything he does is always to bring me and us into our destiny, our purpose. Think about this with me. When Mary was going to become impregnated to carry the Christ child and to reveal the Son of God to the world, Gabriel, the angel, showed up to give her the message. Why didn't God do it? I mean, certainly God's capable of showing up and saying to Mary she would give birth to the Christ child. When the shepherds got their revelation, why didn't God show up and give the revelation? Instead, he always sends angels. The reason is because God created the angel for that purpose, and he's not going to take their job from them, because that's how they find their sense of identity. Their place in creation is by fulfilling their assignment. And he won't do it for you either. He creates us for a purpose, and he doesn't say, Gabriel, sit down, I'll handle this one. I'm afraid you won't get it right. How many understand God can do anything and everything way better than all of us combined? He does not need us. He just likes us. He delights in our involvement. The whole concept of co-laboring was in his heart from the very beginning. Be fruitful, multiply, subdue the earth. His longing for your participation, my participation, does not require perfection from me in the sense that I'm going to get it as good as Jesus did. It just requires availability. So Peter comes to Jesus, who just announced he's going to be dying and on the third day raised, and Peter rebukes him. You know, you got to have a lot of something going on to take Jesus aside and rebuke him. It's just not a good plan. I highly recommend one of your goals in life is never rebuke God. So he rebukes him, and Jesus responds to him. He turned and he said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan." It's interesting because he just had a revelation from the Father a minute ago. How fast you can fall. For brilliance and stupidity are closer together than I thought. It's just one careless thought away. That was actually pretty good. In my greatest moment, I'm just one careless thought away from stupidity. So he turned and he said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are an offense to me. You are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men." Get behind me, Satan. You are an offense to me. You're not mindful of the things of God. You're mindful of the things of man. Get behind me, Satan. Your mind is filled with the things of man. Humanity without Christ at the center is demonic in nature. When you got born again, you lost the right to say, "I'm only human." Because you're not. You are primarily a new creation, something that has never existed on the planet before. And here Jesus rebukes Peter because of what filled his mind. He was looking at a supernatural event from human value. In other words, we need you around. You cannot die. You are the key to us coming into our places of rule. We need to see Israel vindicated from the horrible Roman government, etc., etc. All this stuff is in their thinking. They see that Jesus is positioned in popularity and strength and power to take on this great place of influence. They don't want to lose that place of influence. Probably most of us in the room have done that ourselves unconsciously, try to use the things of God, the plans of God for personal gain. It's more obvious in Peter's story. It's much more religious in mine. So Jesus rebukes Peter because his mind was filled with the things of man. I remember years ago, there used to be a TV commercial, and one of the phrases in the commercial was, "The mind is a terrible thing to waste." If the mind wasn't valuable, it wouldn't be worth renewing. The mind is the canvas that God paints on. He likes to reveal mysteries to the curious mind, the yielded mind, the surrendered mind. I'm very, very grateful, very thankful to see the increase of true believers that are moving into the world of arts and creativity and music, media, acting. We have a acting school. We actually have a school, a creative school of the arts, that trains people as revivalists to function in Hollywood and those places. And I'm very thankful that all of that is happening. But the creativity, the mind of Christ is not just to be seen in the overt demonstrations of creativity. It's supposed to be seen in the way we relate to each other. It's supposed to be seen in just the ways that we do life. And the yielded mind receives impressions. And one of the things that has frustrated me just growing up in the church is seeing all the creative expressions in the world seem to come from people who don't know the Lord, whether it's medicine or technology or the arts or what have you. And I am honestly thankful. I remember growing up as a kid, baseball was my sport, and I was forgive me for offending all of you right now, but I was a San Francisco Giants fan, still am to this day. Yes. There's a few of you in the room. I feel you. I feel you. And I remember as a young boy loving baseball so much, and there was one Christian athlete on the team. And it was so rare to hear of any professional athlete that was a believer. And yet today, I understand from people who are involved in the NFL that up to 70% of the players in the NFL are believers. At one time, you would find maybe one, and now it's spreading all over. And I'm so thankful for that. What I'm looking for is not just the numbers. I mean, we've got some of the main quarterbacks in the industry are absolutely on fire believers. They are revivalists in their own right. And we see the same in most every sport, and I'm so thankful for that. We see it in Hollywood. We see it all over the place. I'm grateful for all of that. I guess what I'm looking for, I'm kind of fishing with you tonight, is I want to see some inventions come from people that are yielded in their heart and mind to the Lord, to be able to fix stuff. You know, it's the solutions to dilemmas. I hunger to see this so much, and I know it's happening because we actually have connections in technology and in the medical world and politics and stuff. I know it's happening, but I feel like it's supposed to happen more. I feel like it's supposed to happen more, and it's the yielded mind. It's the mind that considers nothing's impossible for God. Nothing's impossible, and He might as well use me. I'm available. Well, as long as we can present the solutions and the creative expressions and not take the credit for it, as long as we don't take the glory from Him, but actually use these things to better the lives of people around us. You know, one of the sobering, I spent some time studying, I'm always studying wisdom, but I spent some time studying Solomon and his life. And one of the things that really got me about his life was the day the Queen of Sheba came to him and told him he was highly favored of the Lord. But she added this phrase, said, you are highly favored of the Lord because of His love for His people. Think about that. Solomon, you're highly favored of the Lord for their sake. If the favor on our lives, it does not benefit the people around us, then our favor is misused. Favor is not given to me for self-promotion. Anything I obtain through self-promotion, I have to sustain through self-promotion. It's an exhausting protocol. It's an exhausting effort. The cool thing about the Lord, it says he adds blessing to our life, and that blessing comes without sorrow. See, there's so many blessings in life, but they come with sorrows. There are many people in this city, many people in this room probably, who have in your times past have obtained certain breakthroughs and blessings, but it cost you your family. It cost the trust of your close friends. Oftentimes there's sorrows because we don't apprehend things fully in the way the King would have us apprehend. And so I'm fishing in a sense to say, the Lord wants to give impressions and thoughts and ideas, and it may be simply for, a meal that you're making for the family tonight, but it also may be a cure for a horrible disease. The Lord he inspires these thoughts, these ideas, and as you read through books where people describe inventions, it will come to them mysteriously, oftentimes just out of nowhere. They'll be walking down the road and have this idea. I think the Holy Spirit is involved in this stuff, and I'd love to see us carry not the weight in a sense of a wrong sense of burden or, like discouragement, that sort of thing, but to carry a sense of responsibility, noble responsibility before our communities, that we actually have access to a Father who has answers for everything that's going on. To face the situations that we have in society right now, and to do it, with a Hail Mary prayer is sad, because he's actually shown us that he is the one who knows no impossibility. And to pray to get one word spoken from the heart of God carries the weightiness of the presence of God. And a word spoken from the heart of God through your lips attracts the angelic realm to enforce what you just said.